Welcome back to Special Topics in Media, a PODYSSEY, where Scott and I have been questing across our metro to see Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey in 70 millimeter film. Well, if you can't tell from the what do you call it?
Searing sunlight,
Yeah,
the 108 degrees in the car.
we're nearing the happy hour of photography, right?
Yeah.
But in the
The
meantime,
light is beautiful.
we've got a bit of a commute ahead of us. We're just going to do some live reporting because we had a surprise or two, I'm just going to say. And this
Yeah.
turned out to be a terrific experience. We may have met a Cyclops outright. So,
Yes.
Scott, do you want to set this up a little bit?
Well, just on the way in, we were fortunate enough to overhear a young gentleman who is trying to crash the gate. The
Yeah,
ticket,
we were doing the ticket check-in.
the ticket collector said, "Hey, where's your ticket?" And he said, "I'm in the projectionist." And so, since neither Garrett nor I have any, social filter or manners at all, we sort of
Chased
trotted down
down.
the hall and said, "Hey, are you really the projectionist?" You got to understand, projectionists are rare birds now. 98%, I said this before, 98% of what you go to the movie and see is digital.
Yeah.
And digital runs itself. It's
That's
like
the
an
thing.
automated radio station.
It was like a rare bird sighting or so. We both looked at each other like, did he say projectionist?
Let's take a chance. A wonderful man
What are the
named
odds?
Travis.
Mhm.
Travis is from
From Missouri.
Missouri. So that tells you, we're in Oklahoma City, that tells you how rare they are when they're going to show a film that's actually film, whether it's 35 millimeter or 70. They have to call in a projectionist. Normally there's not one on staff. And this is, 24 screens?
Yeah, 24 screen
yeah,
theater. They've got
yeah.
one specialty theater, the
Yeah.
one we mentioned before that they
Refurbished?
refurbished for
Refurbished
2016's The Hateful Eight, and then
Yeah.
they've since shown,
which
as he noted,
which Travis confirmed was a real epic making film. That is The Hateful Eight, because Quentin Tarantino, being who he is, filmed that and released it in 70 millimeter, and that created an impulse across the country for theaters, including this one, I think, to refurbish some 70 millimeter projections, some movie projectors, and so that's something that he's been involved in since about that time. For him, I think he indicated that's kind of when that kind of work started.
he also co-organizes, helps with
Yeah.
a local film festival in Columbia, and it's kind of rooted in the community.
Yeah.
All the time. Let me make an academic lesson while since we have the time. Oftentimes one of the struggles that we like to push students through is feeling more confident about the major that they choose. Communication, for example, can seem, let me use a confusing term,
Right.
oblique to some. It can create uncertainty in terms of not knowing the dexterity of where you can take a degree like that. Well, similarly, he professed to be a film studies major.
Yeah.
And
Who didn't
but-
really want to be a director.
yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
so, but he kind of found a place, cultivating some experience as projectionist, and see,
Mhm.
that's a nice story to hear. That's encouraging.
And he says, if you're inclined to science, he says that projectionist techs, the people that repair the equipment on projectors, are actually even more rare than projectionists. And so
Okay.
there's an opportunity to build good income, as we know from business classes, right? Rarity usually leads to bidding up the value of your services, so you can make a good living as being in the technical end of it, or in this case, a projectionist. He had lots of knowledge about film. He obviously loves film. He does get to watch quite a lot of film, although not necessarily straight through because of his duties. But if you're interested that way, and you don't feel that you really want to be creative in the way that either actors or directors might be, that you're better at the technical arts, there are so many ways to participate in that. Good jobs.
So let's talk a little bit about the film, and don't worry, I know
Yeah.
which way I'm going here.
I'm
We're gonna get it. We're gonna get there.
I have trust that we will eventually get there.
But we took in the film, and of course had plenty of time with about 25 minutes
Yeah.
of
I
previews.
think he said 29 minutes of previews.
They
That's about where it's at nowadays.
they had the popcorn popping. It was tasty. It's a nice afternoon treat. Plenty of fiber there, and what second impressions? We're gonna actually talk film dissection at a later date, but second
Yeah.
impressions
Well,
upon
let
screening.
me give one, and then maybe you can give one. But here's my top impression.
Okay.
This is a 3-hour film, and again, I didn't look at my watch even one single time. Nolan is a master of pacing. He's a master of outlining a complex narrative in a way that just keeps you engaged. It's wave after wave of engagement, whether it's dramatic or action or suspense, which come in turns. I can't believe. There's a lot of good movies that are 3 hours long that I wouldn't necessarily not, maybe get up and go to the bathroom or check my watch at least. I'm really enthralled by how engaging this film is. Your turn.
Something that caught my eye, because we had one of those, and this became a question after the fact. We had a little bit of a false start once we got to the movie.
We did, yeah.
And I've seen this happen before, in some big
Yeah.
movies, and some big it started to
The Universal logo actually
the
came
Universal
up.
logos coming across, and then it looked a little out of focus, or
Yeah.
a little off, and then we kind of got the what's a sensation we don't experience as often
Yeah.
in the digital film age.
Yeah.
You could see like the black. It went screen to black. You could see the shadow of some film strippage,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of tinkering. There's maybe about 30 seconds of a silent delay.
Mm-hmm.
Patient audience. We were sitting in the dark. and
Nobody was
people
hooting or
just,
anything. I wonder what that is in the road.
I don't know. Ran over it.
Yeah, it was a small child.
But when it came back on, crystal clear, crisp picture. Here's my observation from the
Yeah.
logo. The back, I had already started to see this when it was a little out of focus, but it's fully intentional. The logo appears to be made out of bronze, and this is a
Yes.
film that reflects at two different places
Yeah.
on this idea that it's taking place at the
In-
twilight of the Bronze
in the
Age.
Bronze Age. Yeah.
If I'm gonna go Nolan metaverse here, he's been accused by film scholars and critics of being the kind of director that sometimes makes a film that for the audience is telling a broad story, and for the cinephile is telling a story about the making of film.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I can't help but draw some additional parallels between this film and maybe what he sees as the twilight of the traditional film age.
Because this is the twilight of the Bronze Age. Again, something you won't read in the Odyssey, although by the time the Odyssey was actually formulated as a written text, this is well known. But the Mycenaeans, the culture that, the Daunians, if you will, the culture that Odysseus belonged to, that went across the Aegean Sea and defeated Troy. And yes, that really happened, maybe 1200 BC. That was a high point in culture that collapsed. There were invaders from the north. There were invaders like Phoenicians that are called in the movie the Sea Peoples. You'll never see the Sea Peoples in the movie unless you take Penelope's steak.
Well, it becomes kind of like a cultural myth of its own time, right?
Yeah,
This idea of like the building up of an intercultural other, right? That foreigner, that invader, and that's definitely a theme in this movie, and in the Odyssey is this
build on that
concern about it. Okay.
This is something really smart this time. I'm really gonna have to think it through. By the way, folks, this is how you know you've got hold of a good. I don't care if it's a text. I don't care if it's a movie. I don't care if it's a play. When you keep seeing new things and new ideas spring from rewatching, this is a rich artifact. But there's this, we're introduced to this idea that one of the problems for their culture is that they're in decline, and that they feel threatened by the other. And yet when they end up raiding other places to get food, the message given them is, you're the other. You're the ones coming in and burning our village to get food because you're the Greeks, you're the top of that pyramid, and you are appropriating everything for yourself because you feel like yours is the culture that needs to be preserved. Now, let's go one more. What does that say about American culture? Okay, that's
Sure, I'm with you there, and I picked up on that thread as well.
yeah,
I think it's also valuable. Last year, I remember Nolan in an interview. He's turning into the meta director that loves to talk about. It's kind of like Tom Cruise now takes selfies at the movie theater of
yeah.
him holding his movie ticket,
Right.
which it's survivor branding. I mean, this is
That's
what's
right.
happening.
You'll never die.
But Nolan was quoted at one point as saying his favorite movie to watch last year was Gladiator 2,
Okay.
which didn't crack very many top 10 lists.
No.
But I really immediately felt like there was a reason. And it's because Nolan's been so immersed in his own sword and sandals epic,
Yeah.
and he had to be thrilled that that film had some legs in the holiday season. It wasn't ginormous as we might say, but it was enough of a hit that it showed, okay, there's still audience for this, and there's still stuff to do. So I felt like he was gathering some personal momentum from Ridley Scott. Now, Ridley Scott, as I'm famous for reminding people, his films continuously reflect on his complicated understandings and maybe processing over his life of empire.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
citizen of the UK, right? As a Scotsman, as as someone that has to wrestle with that cultural imperialism firsthand, and even film for a long time was a dominant cultural enforcer, right? It carried a lot of themes about the U.S., about the West, across the global scale, and that's not nothing. And so here's Nolan getting his turn to weigh in on maybe the ways in which themes about the idea sets, ideological values of the West clash up against other areas.
Yeah, and here we are. We are going to hit the traffic after all. Um, the I don't want to sound like a person who wants to take everything good and turn it into a diatribe against the U.S.
You're no rhetorical critic.
Yeah, I do not.
You
Yeah,
businessman.
I don't even buy into a lot of rhetorical criticism. I think it's starting at the end and working backwards. Finding what you were looking for to start with a lot of times. But I and Nolan is not like laying it out there and saying,
I wonder what Homer would have to say about that.
"Duh." Oh, not that Homer.
Doe.
Doe. Uh, but I think that he's using what we know about Greek culture which we, since the Renaissance, have also idolized as a high point. And this not classical Greek culture, but ancient Greek culture. It's where so many of our later myths come from that inform everything we still do. And so we're familiar. That's the crazy thing? We're familiar with these characters which have existed first in Greek culture and then for the world for now thousands of years, and we're still telling stories about them. So I don't think that he's bashing American culture any more than he's bashing ancient Greek culture, but it is a precautionary, right? When you're at the top, what looks like survival for your culture, for your meritorious culture, ends up being a something that you increasingly take away from others.
I don't think Nolan's bashing anything, and I don't even know if he's conflicted. I think he loves myths and myth making, and that's a big element in his storytelling. His Dark Knight trilogy it hinges upon notions of myth. He draws upon many allegorical names and things of that nature in his films. Inception, Interstellar, these become his own types of mythic vehicles as well. And so, he's, if anything, he's almost like the curious student that wants to embrace embrace the value of myth, the power that myths play in storytelling. Here's a film, The Odyssey, that keeps returning to different storytelling types within the narrative, right?
Yeah.
You've got character, and this, by the way, this is one of my favorite aspects of this adaptation, that
Hmm.
we jump in and out of some different situations where people are gathering around for stories to be told. And at one point, Penelope,
Yes.
played by Anne
Yeah.
Hathaway, interrupts
Wow.
and says, "I want another song."
Yeah.
Like, in
That's
other
right.
words,
Um,
tell the different version of the
yeah.
story. Enough
Yeah.
of this one.
Not the canned version that we've all learned to accept
The
as the
populist
truth, right?
version.
The populist version, which makes heroes out of it. I think we'll probably end up saving
Yeah.
our discussion about individual performances and some of the technical superlatives for a sit down podcast. But wow, Anne Hathaway, I thought she was strong the first time. I'm as a
Real comeback
relatively
performance. Yeah.
stoic male, I want to tell you, she had me close to tears when I saw her again in that penultimate scene with Telemachus. So strong. She's got to be a front runner for best actress at this point.
She's doing a great job of transitioning from what has always been a kind of porcelain performance
Yes.
style, the young,
Yeah.
flawless skinned female,
Right.
right, in so many roles,
And
so many memorable
she's
ones.
still playing an ideal woman, but she's got a ferocious devil inside of her. It's just, and not in a bad way.
I sense
Tenacious.
that a lot of these actors, what they're reveling in the chance to do something a little more stagey, a little more operatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think of even a supporting character. You may be even less familiar with his name, but how often he's showing up in
Yeah.
the last decade plus. Joe Bernthal,
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Which you,
brother of
yeah.
Agamemnon. You know, he's
honestly,
he's showing up having a ball in his role.
I can't name his filmography, but I've always thought of him as an action hero. Has he been in action movies?
Well,
Is it-
he showed up. He was originally in Walking Dead at the very beginning.
Okay, yeah.
He's in the sidelines of like Wolf of Wall Street. He's been
Yeah.
showing up in a lot of kind of getting the crew together type things.
Yeah.
He's been playing Marvel's Punisher on the Daredevil series, which I see the headlines.
Yeah.
I've watched less of it, but here's someone that kind of is getting a claim to fame chances in his mid 30s to upper 40s.
Yeah.
He's
he's
wasn't
so
someone
graceful. He's still he's still got such a demanding presence. I mean, I think probably someone who's more impressive in his middle age than he would have been younger. It's
but let's jump ahead to something that's it's got even more gravitas. How about John Leguizamo
yeah,
pulling out of
yeah.
theater and the margins and all of that?
Mhm.
I mean, he's someone we got a lot of coverage of in the 90s. He really got a lot of juicy roles, and this is a nice call up.
Yeah. But here's something, point I want to make about this though. You're absolutely right. And this is a movie, one of the things I like about Casablanca is nobody's phoning it in. People who have 10 lines in Casablanca
Take
are-
your 2 minutes
are
and do the best
killing
with it.
Are killing it. They managed to establish memorable characters, and this is very reminiscent. Everybody's killing it. They people who who have very few lines. But here's and that's the other side of this point. There are a lot of characters who have very few lines. For a film that is typically thought of as an epic, and that means a cast of thousands, there are maybe, I don't know, there might be 30 characters who have lines, but most of the action, most of the screen
physical
time,
performance
by a long
nonverbal.
shot, is Matt Damon, is Anne Hathaway, is
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland playing Telemachus,
Mhm.
is I would say Bernthal's right in there, in that next tier, but you could count on one hand or maybe one hand and a finger the main characters. A lot of it plays out. Charlize Theron is Calypso, gets to have pretty extended dialogue with Matt Damon, and again, all these people are doing a fantastic job.
Well,
and sometimes with very few
this
lines.
harkens back to something we were just discussing this summer on the pod, which is the old-fashioned Hollywood spectacle.
Yes, yeah,
And we talked about Ben-Hur, and we really went to town on how uh, these movies was a great showpiece for just grand stage, lush production design, and so on. And even though they were using a lot of sound stages and just big sets and costuming and enormous casts, it's not completely different. Nolan is doing a throwback thing. That's what's getting so much praise. Is it's not
yeah,
a lot of exterior photography, a lot of incredible scale production design or close
yeah,
to scale trick photography too, though, like making
yeah,
characters appear
yeah.
larger and smaller.
Yeah, there's
And
some forced perspective. There's, yeah.
so
Again,
he's
I
going
haven't
to the
done
woodshed on the
Yeah,
toolbox.
I haven't. Is that where we keep the toolbox? Is the woodshed?
I think so, next to the chainsaw.
It sounds like punishment. I haven't done research yet, but I feel like we're going to find out that even some of the opportunities he could have had for CGI, like Skillis and Charybdis, are going to turn out to be practical effects, and we'll see. But he does so much with that. Like, you could have easily CGI'd the heck out of the scene where they go to Hades, but instead he accomplished it very simply and dramatically by just having people sort of rise up out of the earth, and it's incredibly
It's effective.
intimidating.
Yeah.
Without being, it doesn't have to have any special effect to it.
Well, how about speaking of, I can tell that it's not a CGI fest when we're exposed to
Mm-hmm.
a magical transformation in the house of
Yes.
none other than Circe.
Circe, the witch who turns who turns Odysseus' men into pigs.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
and
a
turn
scary
it back.
scene.
It's a really scary scene. You
because
know what's
the
most scary
editing
about it
is so.
is the way they're gag eating the
Yeah.
food, like they can't stop. They look like octopus
I had
tentacles
I
coming out
had
of their
an
mouth.
observation on that scene.
Yeah.
It's very, to me,
Uh-huh.
I think one of several trick photography bits in that
Mhm.
sequence. When they're eating, he's running some film backward. It looked like.
Oh, you
Like
think?
it looked like they
To-
were eating in reverse,
Yeah.
and that's how they
Oh,
were getting
that-
like this large intestinal looking
and
noodle
letting
things
it come
up.
out of
Yeah.
their mouth.
Yeah.
That might be, and it would, again, it's a scene where they're being bewitched, so you can get away with just doing very practical things, but in a weird way, and it makes it feel like it's unnatural, which is the whole point. And I'm with you. I think the whole transformation. Welcome to Oklahoma City. I don't know if you heard that honk or not.
It's our old friend.
It's our old
Trashy.
friend, Highway the Madman. Look out, he's got a gun.
He's already on his way. He's already changed lanes and flying.
Why
down
is he
there.
so mad? He's going home. That's there's no game on. So. But that whole pig transformation scene, I think that's accomplished with like rubber models, don't
Yeah,
you?
oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's not. And there would have been an ideal opportunity to say, "Oh, let's CGI the heck out of this."
Yeah, you don't.
And
really see
it's
that.
so
or even stop motion the way
Yeah.
what's the werewolf in London or whatever it's called.
Oh yeah, where they
American Werewolf in
American Werewolf in London.
London.
Yeah, one of the many werewolf transformations.
Oh, by the way, we saw an ad. I didn't see this in IMAX before. We saw an ad for Robert Eggers' Werewolf, early
yeah.
at the credits.
Which, talk about commitment.
I am stoked.
They do it all in Middle English.
Yeah,
It's-
I'm nerding out here. I'm stoked
Yeah.
for that part. I want to hear people speak in something I can interpret as incredibly foreign
If
to
it's
me.
true Middle English, I can tell you now, you're going to need subtitles. You won't believe the difference in Middle English and Modern English. Most people think Middle English is like Shakespeare. That is late. That is early Modern English, right? And Chaucer is Middle English. Beowulf is in Old English, and you can't understand 1 in 10 words. Anyway, that's a side note. It'll be really interesting. And again, his credentials now with first The Lighthouse, which we
Eggers,
thought
yeah,
was
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. Well, The Witch
and,
before
and
that,
then the
and then The
Witch
Lighthouse.
or the Witch. Yeah.
And now big
Oh,
blockbuster
Witch was
success.
first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
With Dracula.
Yeah.
or whatever. Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. And so here's a guy who, man, is he heir apparent to Del Toro, who is still making good films?
Yeah, yeah. He
You
needs
know,
Del Toro needs to invite him over to the little
yeah.
miniatures paintings
Yes,
party he does
yeah,
with
yeah.
Spielberg and Abrams
Oh,
and
that's
others
right.
at
They
his
did.
house.
How quaint.
Well, let's jump back and let's talk about the special treat that we did not predict, we did not ask for. It
Yeah.
was just served up to us in a platter, not unlike Cersei's special meal to Odysseus's troops.
Well, maybe not exactly.
Travis invited us up to the projectors booth
Yeah.
to
Yes.
check out the 70 millimeter tech.
Yes. And so we, and he was very knowledgeable about the history of projecting. What you need to remember is that place normally runs itself, and it runs on digital projection, and digital does not have the density of 70 millimeter, and it doesn't have the depth. And something he pointed out, which I didn't, he said the quality of the film by the time you're running it in your local theater, he says it doesn't look great sometimes. And so we did notice a real difference. It's subtle, but it informs the whole picture. And here's the one place I noticed it the most, because it's very hard to, like, without seeing them side by side, it's kind of hard to remember. But there's a scene where Odysseus comes back. He's talking to Penelope. She doesn't know it's him yet, and he's talking to this screen. She's behind a screen during many scenes because she's got to pick one of the suitors to remarry, and she doesn't want to, and so she's back there weaving a tapestry.
It was like a romantic notion of like separating the men from the
Right.
women, or
Exactly.
maybe like the
Talking through the
lords from the
screen.
ladies, or the
But
louses
this
from the ladies.
screen
In
is
this
a
case.
golden lattice work. When I watched this in IMAX, it just looked like a golden lattice work. Watching that in 70 millimeter, the play of light across that, it would flip. The reflections would flip from horizontal to vertical and create these subtle patterns. I first noticed the flame shining through, and I thought, is that spot on the film? And then I realized, okay, there's a torch shining through, but not consistently because the camera's panning. And I think that is a ton of visual information that you're just not seeing in digital, which IMAX is.
Well, all the big directors are trying to resuscitate a wide audience interest in film by pulling out niche tricks like 70 millimeter as an opportunity to experience film a little bit differently. He noted, and I just saw a piece on this where Paul Thomas Anderson, winner of last year's Best Director and Best Picture Oscar for One Battle After Another, did this with The Master in, I believe, 2010 or 12.
That was a 70 millimeter release. There have been relatively few.
And a pair of dueling performances there, just a magnetic but jarring movie.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Tarantino's A Hateful Eight. Also, this is the tricky thing I was going to say to Travis. The hard part about it, ironically, for all the effort he put in to make that a kind of special experience, it's right there among his lowest grossing films. It did not actually do well.
Yeah.
And I think he recuperated some of his costs by allowing the larger cut of it to be spliced up by Netflix. So I'm sure Netflix helped cut some checks and all that
Well,
kind
I
of
didn't
thing
see
on
it
the
until
back
it was on
end.
Netflix, but the great Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Yeah.
who tragically not with us anymore, but one of the great actors of the generation, starring in that. And
The Master. Yeah.
the
fantastic.
Master. Is that what we're still talking about?
I was talking about Hateful Eight.
Oh,
but,
did you go back to Hateful Eight?
But Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix in The Master, Hateful Eight, an ensemble piece, an homage to both kind of simultaneously Hitchcock and John Carpenter to an extent. And
a lot of it's a closed room drama.
And then a trilogy of Nolan films.
Yes.
Dunkirk. I only saw that once in the IMAX. And then Oppenheimer, which I saw at that very theater in 70 millimeter.
Yeah.
And now the Odyssey.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the parlor trick, like pull it out every so often. Kind of maybe it retains its
Well, and I
mystique
just,
by not overusing it.
I hate. I get what you're saying. It only works if it creates revenue in a different way, and yet I don't class it with tricks. Like CGI
That's
is a
fair.
trick.
Yeah, that's fair.
You
Well,
know,
gimmick is gimmick.
right,
Fair. I was just
right.
trying not to use a demeaning
No,
term.
I get it, but to me though it's so conservative. It's not that it's new; it's that it's true to what was old. It's true
So
to
is it
the.
like that old bottle of wine pull out of the cellar?
I think
Like
so. I think
let's
it's to create
pop the
a
cap on this or
to
whatever we're
create
doing.
a premium experience, and hopefully there'll be enough people who want to have that premium experience and will pay for it. And yet, this was the cheapest Thursday at noon, so that has something to do with it. But these were the cheapest tickets I've gotten in a long
I
time.
couldn't believe that. Way to
Garrett,
go.
who is not privileged to be a senior, paid 10.85. I'm a senior. I paid $9.55
That is wild. Three
for
digits.
for a 3 hour 70 millimeter film, and the film wasn't very. What deflates me a little bit is it wasn't nearly as packed as that IMAX release that I paid $23 to go see, and so you wonder if the economics will be there. In fact, these movies are released in all those formats, right? So it's
It is. They have it on like
yeah,
7 screens at that theater. Is the
yeah,
problem? It's in their Dolby. It's in their IMAX. So
right.
that's probably those luxury like recliner chairs. It's going to pull audience there
Mm-hmm.
first, and then the kind of cinephile crowd is coming out for a 70 mil. It's a Thursday, a nooner. I mean, it's tricky.
Yeah,
Usually, people
yeah,
kind of they know that there's a bargain Tuesday typically in the industry,
yeah,
so
yeah.
people will hit Tuesdays up real hard, and then otherwise it's weekends and date nights and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I suspect it's going to rebound. In fact, yesterday we looked at least, and it was pretty full yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just currently just saturating a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's going to be around
Plus,
for a while. We know that.
it's incredibly stinking hot here. That could have something to do with people not. We've hit that part of the year where it's 100 degrees every day, and it slows people down a little bit. They don't necessarily want to get out and drive around.
Well, very good. Well, this was a fantastic voyage, Scott. And
Mhm.
while we haven't quite finalized our homecoming to do drop offs and pickups here,
That was an
uh,
Odysseus joke.
I do think we can. I do think we can kind of round out our closing sentiments here. A good experience with some terrific findings, some little
Hmm.
treasures, and hopefully a new point of contact that we could be able to maybe even connect students with
Yeah.
in the future. Love the thought of that, and appreciate you spontaneously joining me for a couple of conversations en
Yeah.
route.
Well, it's just my short attention span. I spontaneously join a lot of things. So.
Very good. Well, we appreciate that, and we thank everyone for watching and listening online.
Mhm.
Be sure to click and follow us or email us at specialtopicsinmedia@gmail.com. Find all the ways to connect, and we're eager to
And console
oblige.
yourself if you're not in 5 o'clock traffic when it's 100 degrees outside.
Yeah, this is true. We may
We may be in our own
we may
Hades here.
soon have to pick between our own obstacles in
Isn't this
the
how eight and a half
the
starts? Am I about to float out of this car?